Starting. We have started. Starting. Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Android Central podcast. It is episode number 161 for Friday, November 15th, 2013. Welcome to the show. I'm excited. We've had a good, productive week, and I feel good about myself. How about you guys? Jerry?
I feel pretty good about you too, Phil.
Andrew, how you feeling in Seattle?
Rather gray right now at the moment, but
Are you
other
in,
than that, it's fine.
You could put a grey overlay over your image if you wanted to.
And I was messing around with this before. I think we should. That's a
There
little
you
bit
go.
better.
So, welcome to the show. I'm Phil Nickinson, editor of AndroidCentral.com. This is our little podcast. We do it every week, and we do it live, most of the time. So, hi. Got the live Q&A going on in the Google Hangout, so ask us questions if you want. And we are going to discuss things pertaining to Android. Right?
Yep, that's what we do.
Right.
Cool. What should we start with this week? All right, then. See you later.
Moto G?
Moto G. I'm kind of excited about this. I'm a little jealous that I haven't seen it.
Oh wait, that's yellow. I thought it was green from your other picture with the disco lighting.
It's kind of a greenish yellow. In this light it looks yellow, in normal light it looks green.
Oh, okay.
So on Wednesday, Google had an event in was it Sao Paulo, I think? And they had
Had a few satellite events around the world. There was one in London that we went to.
Tell me about the phone, Alex. It's
a good, cheap Android phone in a nutshell. I mean, it's a simplistic way to describe it, but it's that's effectively what it is. It's also to do with the way they've handled the budget of this phone, I think. So it's retails for £135, SIM-free in the UK. In the US, it's going to be $179, I think. Mm-hmm. And for that, you get 720p screen, 4.5-inch display, quad-core Snapdragon 400 CPU, and a very sort of bare bones but good-looking sort of stock Android-ish Motorola software experience.
That's like super cheap, off contract.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and this is so much better than anything else at that price point that it's probably, unless there's some reason that you absolutely need some feature that's not on here, maybe you want a slightly better camera or you need LTE or something like that. But really, you're not getting a better Android phone for that amount of money, probably at least until well into next year.
So,
right.
I mean, we've been talking about the Moto X for months now. What is the difference between the Moto G and the Moto X?
It mostly comes down to software features, and the specs are different. Obviously, the X is dual core, but a faster dual core, whereas this is a quad core A7. But it's mostly down to features. You don't get the OK Google Now stuff. You don't get the notification, whatever it's called, active notifications. When you press down, when the screen's off, you can preview notifications. That's not on there. Same deal with some of the other stuff. You do get trusted Bluetooth. You do get Motorola Assist, Motorola Migrate. So anything that doesn't need the specialized hardware will be in here. But the stuff that uses the Motorola X8 or 8X or whatever it's called, the fancy sort of low power cores they have on that phone, anything that uses that won't be on here. But you do get the basic sort of Motorola Android suite of stuff.
So it doesn't have the always listening OK Google Now thing.
Doesn't have always listening, doesn't have active notifications, doesn't have the funky camera gesture thing. But yeah, you do get everything essentially everything that the phone can do when it's switched on.
What about I don't know if you've had a chance to test it or not. In the driving mode, will it read your messages back to you and allow you to dictate a text message?
That is a good question.
Quick, go for a ride.
Doesn't
wait.
appear to be. The first
Go ahead.
guess.
Because I was wondering how much of the low power core stuff was involved.
So
in
yeah,
that.
I mean, it's not all the low power core stuff. There's also the fact that you have who's someone?
Yeah, you.
I can still hear
I'm
me.
just gonna yell,
Can you not hear me?
Like every 30 seconds. Nope, you're ducking out on us for a minute.
No, if you couldn't hear yourself, now that would be weird.
Yeah.
Okay, what was I saying?
I can hear myself too. All right, so we know it's coming to the U.S. Verizon has said it's picking it up on prepaid because, and actually, Jerry, that's one of the interesting things here in the States. I don't think we're getting. I mean, it's not an LTE device, right?
Right.
So it's going
It's
to
going to
be
be hard to find.
Verizon and AT&T will not sell a postpaid phone that doesn't have LTE now.
right.
This is your chance to get out from under the evil thumb of Verizon and AT&T.
There's something to be said for that. Yeah, I mean, Sprint's all about prepaid these days, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, you could see a lot of the prepaid, like the Walmart prepaid plans, just selling these things in blister packs with SIM cards, for $189, with an activation card or something. Or $229 with a month of service or something. That's going to be a huge selling point for this phone.
And I'll tell you what, I really hope that I can walk into Target and scroll down the aisle beside the computer monitors and see it like with a Virgin Mobile blister pack, where you can spend under $200 and get a good phone, because what they're offering now, it makes Android look bad. Let's be honest. The Galaxy Young or whatever the heck it is just not a good phone.
Well, these kind of specs will usually run you at least $300 off contract. I mean, you look at what they sold the HTC First for, the One Mini. Those are $400 or $500 phones. I mean, not taking into account the Nexus 4 and 5. You had to go to $400 to get something like this. I mean, yes, it's a Snapdragon 400, but for $179, you're not even getting a last year's processor. Usually, it's last year's bottom of the barrel processor normally at that price.
So hopefully you guys can actually hear me now.
Hey,
what they were saying is
back.
that thanks. So what they were saying is that a lot of phones around this price point make compromises in areas that don't really make sense. So either you get a phone that's just old, or a phone that that has sort of things prioritized in the wrong way. So they skimp on the screen, which is the thing you're looking at all the time, or they give you a lousy GPU, so it hampers what you can do with it in terms of higher end stuff and gaming. I think the biggest thing about this is how the things that you can actually see and interact with most of the time, the screen, for instance, and the fact that for most Android apps, it's reasonably speedy, more so than a lot of other phones at this price point. It just shows they've really thought quite carefully about where they put their money when they're designing this, because, of course, this isn't like a Nexus. This is a phone where they are actually presumably making money on it, as opposed to breaking even or making a small loss. Does
it make you not feel bad about not having a Moto X like the rest of us?
No, I still have Moto X Envy. I think about how much nicer this would be if it was slightly faster, and if it had slightly better battery life, although battery life is pretty good on this, or if it's had all the stuff we've been talking about with the Moto X for the past 3 months. It's still a shame that Moto doesn't have this mid to high end covered in the same way that they do in the US. And we were talking to Motorola about this at the event. They basically, they did basically reboots at the start of this year, and that resulted in them really not being in Europe until Q4. So I think that they told us this is something they're addressing. They're not announcing anything new besides the G. The G is the first product with the new Motorola for Europe, but certainly there are going to be more things ahead.
Good. At this point in the game, you don't want them to release the Moto X in Europe.
Probably not.
You're close enough to the next big thing.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. But you're right. If the time to release the X was August or September, not November, December.
And I mean, it's not like Motorola's never going to put out another phone ever again, right?
I don't know. Don't you read the internet? They're doomed. They can sell 500,000 phones.
Hey, tell me about the. So it's got like a removable shell, right? You can pop it off like a Lumia or something. Or
it does. It's kind of difficult to get off. You've got to prise it off from the bottom of the USB port, and see if I can actually do this on camera without snapping the phone in half.
Oh my God, he broke it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh.
It even makes noises and complains.
It does. So there, you have to really try to get the back off it, and it does snap back in with a very satisfying crunch. And they ship it with a basic black shell. You can get these, I think, 5 or 6 colors separately, including this sort of neon color, which has already started to pick up marks from being in my jeans pocket all day. But there you go.
Mrs. Hildenbrand read your hands on with. She's very interested. she made me promise that I would ask you, did they say how much the back shells would cost?
I can't remember. Let me see. We did a post on them actually, so if the pricing's out there, it'll be in that hands-on post that Richard did with the accessories.
Okay, well, I'll just tell her to read that.
Yeah. Let's find out.
And everybody listening, you should read that too.
Well, the nice thing about that too is having the extra shells being purchased for a separate price means that they can bring down the initial cost of the phone because it's kind of subsidizing it with the accessories.
Something I noticed, the original black shell is slightly. It doesn't feel quite as nice as the ones you pick up separately, which you would expect, like you were saying, to keep the cost of the base unit down.
Well, and my wife brought up a good point. She said, a pink phone, it looks good on the internet, but what if you buy it and you get it in your hands and you just say, no, I'm not feeling a pink phone. It'd be nice if they're, 30, 40, 50 bucks, you can change it and not have to lay out another $100.
True. We have pricing for the flip shell, the grip shell, which is like a bumper, but we don't. It doesn't look like we have pricing for the replaceable backs yet.
I mean, if the grip shell is 10 pounds, you can expect the back shells to be even less because those grip shells are just the back plate with extra rubber around the edges.
Well, the grip shell is just a bumper, so.
Oh, it's just the bumper.
Certainly, it's not going to be more expensive than the flip shell, which is $18.99.
Cool. I will tell her, and I'm sure she will say thank you. So I will thank you ahead of time.
I'm excited about that. I know people are looking down on it because it doesn't have LTE, but I think we got spoiled here with LTE really early.
Late at night, I stay up late. I can run a speed test without LTE and get 17 megabits per second down in 22-second or millisecond pings. I don't care about LTE.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a good network, you've got a good network.
It just depends how much would the end cost of the phone have gone up if they put LTE. It just feels kind of weird. Do you think that when you get a Snapdragon 400, you think that they would just kind of throw in the LTE along with it?
It's to do with licensing more than the actual hardware, I think.
Really?
Probably. I imagine the hardware's there. Everything but the antenna is probably in it.
Yeah,
that's what I would think. But
every dollar and every cent of manufacturing this thing is important when you're selling a device for less than 180 SIM-free.
Right. That could have been the difference between a 720p and a WVGA screen or something. Having LTE.
And that's what I was talking about. Them actually very carefully considering where they spend their money in this phone.
And that's why it kind of stinks to see them drop, the features that made the Moto X so great. But when like you said, when you do turn on the phone and you get that good experience with a good screen and a capable processor and a gig of RAM, it's kind of you're okay with those trade-offs.
I came into it expecting to be very underwhelmed by the Moto G, and I brought this up with them that these are almost iconic features of the X. The touchless control, the active notifications, or whatever they're called. And they basically said that it was a hardware limitation, that those features are important to them, but what's more important is the rest of the package delivering decent specs at a decent price and having things like a 720p 4.5-inch screen in something that's less than $200.
And that goes back to, I forget if it was Larry or Sergey, but one of them stood up and said that we're concerned about the next billion. And the next billion users are going to come from India and China and Africa. And this is the phone for them. From what I can see, this is it.
And KitKat is the operating system for them.
Yep.
As we were talking about in the past week or two.
I would buy this for my mom if, she didn't just get an iPhone.
You could have bought 5 Moto Gs for that.
Yeah, if this is what it takes to get my parents off contracts, then I would do it in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Yep. I've been using it the past 24 hours. I could happily use this as a daily driver if I had to. Wouldn't be that big of a deal to me.
Well, what I'm thinking is that phone and a 32 gigabyte Nexus 7, which is another $250, is a complete package for everything you would ever need, mobile and internet.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
It's a big deal. I don't think we can quite. I think those of us in the States have a hard time appreciating, especially those of us who are nerding out on this stuff, have a hard time appreciating what a phone like this means to a lot of people in Europe, and especially in South America, which is why they announced it there.
Mhm.
That wasn't just because they thought Brazil would be a cool place to go in November, although it probably is.
You're talking about a place where an iPhone or a Galaxy S4 costs $850 or something like that to buy off contract, which is something that's $600, $700 less and still gives you a good experience is crazy.
And you have a lot of people that just can't come up with $800. Those people want a cell phone too.
Absolutely.
And they went over that very explicitly in the presentation we had from Brazil.
That presentation was awesome, man. When they said some stuff that
They didn't pull any punches there.
right, you call out
Yeah.
the iPhone and the Galaxy S4 and say your $180 off contract phone is better. Boy, I'm interested. I want to see it.
They were talking smack about some Samsung phone, and I think it was like the Galaxy Extreme. I had to go look it up.
Galaxy Young.
Yeah,
which is
Galaxy.
a really
I was like,
low end.
I don't
phone
even
that's still in
remember
Europe.
that. I had to look it up. I didn't remember what it was. There's so many. I mean, look, you can, it's not like Samsung only has low-end phones, but
Right.
it was pretty funny.
But Samsung does have a lot of low end phones.
And,
They
and their,
sell a boatload of them.
Yeah.
their point stands. Samsung's high-end phones, they're good. They're really good. The S4 launched with a few little weird bugs. They fixed them. But those phones are really, really good. But there is a huge gap between those phones and the $250 off-contract phones that Samsung makes. Those are pretty bad phones.
You can make a compelling case to say that this is as good or almost as good as the S4 Mini in a lot of ways.
And
Sure,
that,
the features and the functionality isn't there, but that's really not what they're shooting for. And that they were talking smack about TouchWiz as well, saying that manufacturers are implementing stuff that puts layers on top of Android, that slows things down, that adds features that compete with Google's ecosystem, and that's one side of it, and one side of it that a lot of people might agree with. But it's that's something to consider.
You want to do a couple Q&A questions while I'm thinking about it?
Yep.
Let's see. I thought I had a Moto G one here. We already answered how much. Ryan wants to know, will Alex get a Moto X?
Probably not.
Probably not. What if I give you one? Will you not take it? Will you reject it and throw it in my face?
I would take it, but the problem is there is no Moto X that will give me LTE over here. Like, that model just doesn't exist. So I don't know whether I would trade LTE for all the cool stuff that the Moto X can do.
oh, dude, take it because, a hack will show up on XDA. It'll happen.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
Brian also wants to know, what do you think about Puneet calling out TouchWiz and Sense by name during the presentation? I mean, it's pretty
Kind of
ballsy.
interesting. Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, they're Google, but they're also not Google, right? They're a competing manufacturer, so they can say these things.
Yep. And you know what? It got my attention, and that's what it was designed to do. To make people that know what TouchWiz and Sense means to think, oh, I want to look at this now.
And the other manufacturers call each other out just more subtly, subtle but not so subtle. Anybody that knows already can kind of tell who they're talking about and what they're comparing to. So, why sugarcoat it?
It's also a case of a lot of manufacturers out there at the lower end tend to use stock Android just because they don't have the resources or they can't be bothered to develop their own skin on top of it. I think that was one way of Motorola saying, okay, this is a conscious design decision to stick with what Google's done and just build features on top of it, not build a whole new UI framework and do these other things that HTC and Samsung are doing.
I just want to see Woodside and Shin in a celebrity death match. MTV, you've got to do it.
Oh, man.
Can you talk about FM radio and dual SIM options? So, the one we have here is a single SIM one. There will be dual SIM options in certain countries. We didn't get any indication of which ones they would be, but I'd imagine that would be Eastern Europe, maybe parts of South America. FM radio is on here, I think. Yep, there it is.
Cool.
So that is on there.
Get your music without eating up your data. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and we also underestimate the necessity sometimes of dual SIMs as well.
Yeah, that's another one. Is like we talk about it here, like, oh my God, it's got a dual SIM. That's not new. I've been seeing these weird, Asian dual SIM phones. Motorola, I know I've talked about it before. Motorola, their old CES booth, just had this awesome section where it was just all devices you would never ever see in the U.S. Stuff with 2 SIMs, stuff with radio, like antennas, like they have in Korea. Just some really outlandish stuff, and we don't get that anymore. I'll have to check. I'm not sure if they're coming back to CES this year. We'll see.
So Ryan wants to know, how's the camera on the Moto G? Because that's another area you'd expect them to sort of skimp on, and I guess they kind of have. It's okay. It's passable. Does suffer in low light. You'll get blurriness if you're not careful. But in daylight, it's okay. You have auto HDR the same way as you do, I think, on the Moto X. The camera app is basically the Moto X camera app for whatever that's worth. I know we weren't too thrilled with that, but it works okay. It looks just like the Moto X. And you have the slide across thing to get to your settings.
Cool. I want to transition to some KitKat stuff because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Some of it's more confusing than not. The easy stuff is we now have KitKat technically on all the Nexus devices that we're going to get it. We got over-the-air updates for the Nexus 7s and the Nexus 10, and you can sideload that if you haven't gotten it already. This is one of those times, I know I kind of bash sideloading apps before their time, before the updates are available to you, but I say that for a reason, because you can have multiple versions of apps now, and I really worry about downloading them from blogs and stuff, and I just don't 100% know that that's the one I was going to get. I know I hear things about signatures and whatever, but for major updates, I'm gonna wait.
I'm gonna stop you there for 1 second.
Yeah.
As well. And this, I do not mean anybody from any other Android blog would do this, because they're all really good guys and we've met them all. But there are closed source resources in those applications as well that we can't tell what's inside it, and neither can you until after you install it.
Right.
And that's my biggest issue.
I mean, and my other thing is we just don't have permission to distribute these things. So I mean, from that standpoint, I don't think it's really cool. But what we're talking about with the sideloading updates for devices, for these Nexus devices, that's a little different, because what we're getting is when your device goes to download these updates, it's pulling them off a web server, which is exactly what we do when we say, hey, here's the manual download link. It's exactly the same. It's pulling it from exactly the same place. And it's not like we're sharing it, right? We're not hosting it for other people to get it. We're just downloading.
They host it for you to do this if you mess up your phone already. So
And
well,
frankly,
sort of. That's factoring.
well,
in
the OTAs too, but
right.
if they didn't want you to be able to download it yourself, they would do a little bit of work and change the URL. It's the same damn URL from time to time. All you need to know is the MD5 number.
Right.
And some manufacturers do that. Motorola and HTC both
Yes.
make it so you can't just straight up download it.
Yeah, and they didn't always, but so that's the difference there. So everybody always asks, is it safe? Is it okay? Absolutely. For Nexus devices, I have absolutely no problem with that on any number of levels. So by all means, go do that. And then we got the factory image for the Nexus 4, but we don't have an over-the-air update yet. And
the
they also haven't released
mobile
them.
versions of the Nexus 7 don't have OTAs yet either.
Yes.
But their factory images are there too.
Right. So
So
we're waiting
anything
on
with
kernel
mobile
source.
data, kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's not overly surprising. We've seen that before, I think.
Who do we blame? Let's blame somebody.
I know Jerry's all
Blame
hot
game.
about this.
Well, I you know what? No, my thing is we've got factory images. The software has been released. Where's my kernel source? Come on, Google. The GPL, you agreed to it. Let's do it.
I blame HP.
And I'm done. That's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Jerry's right. But so anyway, those are all available. Go get them. So the really interesting thing is, and it's nice to finally see it officially and know what we're talking about. So the Nexus 5 has the launcher where you slide over and you've got Google Now on one side and then your home screen start. The Nexus 4 does not. The Nexus 7 does not. I assume the Nexus 10 doesn't. I don't have that. Jerry has that.
No, it doesn't.
Why?
I think it's
I
a
don't know.
time.
Man, when the Nexus 4 came out, and it had Keep and the Galaxy Nexus didn't, the outrage across the internet was, wait a minute, there was none.
Well, I think it's got to be a time thing, right? We can all kind of agree, I think, amongst ourselves that this new launcher is going to be on Google Play at some point in the near future.
It looks like that's what they're.
It looks very, very likely, and the only reason it makes, I mean, there is no reason to put all this work into this launcher and to make it run on older versions of Android if you aren't just going to make it generally available. There's a difference between that and including it in the Google Mobile Services package, which is what has to go on every Google-certified Android phone. You don't want a second launcher in there. That would just confuse the hell out of people and probably piss off a few manufacturers at the same time.
Sure.
So there's that. But the reason why it's not in these OTAs or in these factory images is I don't know. It's a bit of a strange decision. I can only imagine that they're not ready to do the push on the Google Play Store yet. They want to give people the choice of replacing the stock launcher on their phones, and that includes people on earlier Nexus devices. But I think there's probably an expectation that most people with a Nexus will want to download this from Google Play when it's out.
Well, we all remember Dieter. Didn't Google tell him that?
I'm sorry, who?
Dieter Bohn.
I'm kidding.
I know.
You say
I
that
know
as
you're
if he's
kidding.
passed away.
But,
The late Dieter.
They basically told him that they want to test it on the Nexus 5 and see how people like it before they do anything else.
I guess.
I think they've
That's a
already
bit- I
decided
feel-
it's going out there.
It feels like a cop-out to me.
It
personally.
feels like a very PR answer, doesn't it?
It's an answer. It's what we've got,
Some
rather
power,
than just
yeah.
guess and make stuff up.
I mean,
I don't know,
that
I like
lines
it.
up with what we're seeing, but it's still kind of like, okay, really. I mean, if they were willing to ship every tens, hundreds of thousands of Nexus 5s with it, put it on the other phones too.
Well,
And it matches the UI of KitKat far too well, better than the stock launcher on the 7,
Yeah.
10, and
Yeah.
4, for it not to be effectively the next step for that.
and
app.
we've seen it on early builds for the Nexus 4.
Yes.
So I have no idea. And then meanwhile, and this Nexus stuff is easy. I want to transition to the hard stuff. Meanwhile, we've got this update to Google Search. And remember that the launcher is actually tucked into the Google Search app now. So you've got this update to Search, which is where all these headlines are coming from. Oh, now you have Search. Now you can get the Google Experience Launcher. And by the way, has Google ever used the word Google Experience Launcher anywhere?
No.
Did we
No.
all just make that up? And right?
Google Experience is really old nomenclature from like the with Google devices, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was what you would call the Motorola Zoom.
Or like the HTC G2.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they call it, I guess. But so the launcher is tucked into the Search app. We all now have this new Search app, which
Isn't it kind of the opposite? Isn't
No,
it
the
that
launcher is in the
launcher
launcher is in
has
the
a
Search app.
slot?
one at
Well,
a
see,
time, boys.
I tore the
Just
Search
kind of
app.
normal.
I tore the Search app apart. There's no launcher in there.
Okay.
Well, there's no launcher in there, but
There's hooks. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
they're designed to work together.
It's like
yeah,
two
the
Lego.
launcher app itself is basically just a stub that says, okay, let's use this as a launcher.
And I do not think. Now, see, the Launcher 3 is also in AOSP. You can just, if you download the source and make Android one time, all you have to do is bring up a terminal and type make launcher, and it'll give you an APK that'll install right to your device.
And is that
But it-
the
Doesn't have
What
the
does
big
that look
icons. And without any edits, it doesn't have the transparent notification bar and navigation bar. Easy enough to edit that and put it in there, but stock out of AOSP, those are not there.
and there's a lot of stuff stock out of AOSP that won't be there. The dialer's not going to have any of the fancy Google stuff. We're running very short on apps that, if you build them in AOSP, are going to be identical to what you find on Nexus 5.
Right.
It's-
And there are
it's-
reasons for that beyond Google just wanting to control things, but that's the way it is.
It's all very strange.
It is.
And I don't have answers for it. Yeah, it's just I worry. I keep worrying that all the confusion about the Search app and or the launcher and what it all means. Like, I have to remember my parents aren't reading this stuff, so it's probably okay. But it's not like we all got the search app and suddenly there was this launcher you were supposed to use instead of using TouchWiz or instead of using Sense. And I know for like 5 minutes we were all kind of worried about that because it was confusing. I was confused.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the case. So, I mean, you get the search update and you get this new Google Now stuff and it looks really nice. But it's not some radically different experience, which I think people are just getting excited about it. And rightfully so, but a little overexcited about it.
And this goes back to what you were saying before about different versions for different software. There's a leaked version of that search app floating around that somebody got on their Nexus 5. If you put it on your Note 3 or your S4, it crashes whenever you try to scroll down. And I mean, it crashes where your phone shuts off. So the one for the Nexus 5 has a little bit of extra magic inside it than at least the one for TouchWiz will have.
I think it's going to be interesting when eventually this does go out for all Android phones or all Android phones on 4.1, presumably plus. It's going to be interesting to see how that changes our perspective on the Nexus 5 because a lot of the front-facing part of KitKat is that launcher. And if you can suddenly get that on any Android phone with 4.1, again, how special is Nexus these days?
How special is it supposed to be? I think is the question we're all going to have to start asking.
I mean, Jesus, it's just a launcher. If they put it out, they're not going to put it out with the same hooks to Google Now, right? Is that going to work? Well, actually, that might.
Maybe
it just means that you have to have search installed.
Yeah,
that would be the
which
reason
everybody
to put it out because right now you can just go download Nova Launcher,
right?
And with a few edits, it can look exactly like the KitKat launcher.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tie into Google Now like that.
It's interesting and it's been confusing and it's as we started to get it, it all started to make sense. It's like, man, people were I just worry everyone's making such a big deal out of it. It's just not that. Not that crazy.
People are making a big deal out of it because they're, the reality didn't line up with everybody's assumptions. So, I mean, that's not necessarily a good reason to, say that something's broken.
I think with being able to with one app turn your skin Samsung or HTC phone into something that looks and behaves like this is potentially a very big deal.
Yes.
Because that's another part of Google having more control over Android, and I think people who want to have the Google experience in terms of the app suite, the calendar, all that other stuff that's the keyboard, the stuff that's optional on Google Play, that's a big portion of what you get on Nexus that now you can suddenly get on any other device, and that could be quite a big deal.
But I can see Samsung seeing you with that phone, what you just showed them, ready to storm Mountain View with pitchforks and torches because that's.
See another celebrity deathmatch coming.
I don't know. It's going to be something that people have to go and find themselves in the Play Store. And most users, Samsung millions upon millions of TouchWiz users aren't going to do that.
Right. And I
for
mean,
the first 3 days, and then it's going to be #1 on the trending app list, and it's going to be all over the front page of the Play Store, and people are going to see it.
I mean, you can already get the calendar and Google Keyboard and Google Search, and I mean, you can already get 4 or 5, Google Experience or whatever you want to call them apps. So, and houses aren't on fire and people aren't running around with pitchforks yet.
No, it's a big deal because it's an important part of the phone, but I don't think it's going to cause any manufacturers any particular grief, really.
My experience might not be the same as everybody else's, but with the Nexus 5, I haven't found myself thumbing over to Google Now any more than I thumbed over to BlinkFeed.
Nope. I still swipe up if I need it.
I use mine a ton, actually.
Yeah,
really?
I'm using it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, that's good. That's why it's done that way.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but I mean, me personally, I haven't found myself doing it anymore.
Like, I realize that it's not like any more of a trouble than it was before to swipe up from the home button, especially on soft devices with soft keys. But it's just kind of a psychological thing that it's always there, whereas before Google Now was hidden, like it was a separate app, and now it feels like it's right there when you're on the home screen, and that's something that just made me use it more. And I, didn't really use Google Now all that much unless I got a notification for it before.
My problem is me. That's the problem. I don't. Yeah, I'm everybody's problem. I don't need Google telling me all these, web stories that I'm either reading or writing about anyway. I mean, and God, Google is just so awful right now with linking to spam, like out of Google Alerts and Google News stuff. Like they have so many just scraper sites and these sites that are using Journatic and just are horrible bad sites that need to.
The worst thing about it is when someone scrapes our work, it puts our name and our image next to it.
Right.
On Google Search as well as Google Now. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm an author on like 75 sites. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even
international
speak the
times.
language.
Oh, maybe that's why I'm avoiding Google
And
now, just because of that.
The tough part about Google Now is, I mean, especially on a phone, you can see like 1.5 cards and then you're scrolling. So it's really valuable real estate. And when they put something there for a breaking news story that you just flat out don't care about, it's, you can swipe it away, but it doesn't seem like they're really learning from that as much as you would hope.
Yeah.
We do a lot of Google searches and a lot of map searches, and it kind of forces you to start using incognito more because you're like, okay, I know that the second I make this search for an address, it's going to start showing up in Google Now, and I just don't care. And that's the opposite effect of what Google wants you to do. They want you to, not hide things from them.
While we're talking about Google Now, you know what I noticed last night?
What's that?
The Amazon Store app for Android got an update recently.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that update was push notifications about the packages you ordered. And then they turned around and pulled the tracking number out of the emails they sent you, so it no longer works on Google Now.
Really?
Wowza.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me look, because I got something on the way right now, and I just saw it in Google Now as we were. Yeah, it just view email. You're right.
But if you have the Amazon app, not the App Store, but just the Amazon app, you get a notification you can tap and it tracks.
Lame. That's worth a post, man.
Okay.
And that's going to make you push. I mean, that's just going to make people go to using the UPS or FedEx app, which will just send you a push notification when anything gets sent to you from anyone.
Right. Which is a good thing, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good app. But, and maybe Google just has to change the way it scrapes that. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope so.
But still, that's...
Because that was handy.
Yeah.
And Gmail on the web has started doing that too. Anytime it sees a tracking number, you get a track package button, before you even open the email.
Yep. Let me do a couple more Q&A questions. I'm not even going to... I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. I just don't want to blow it. What do you think about the differences between Android KitKat on the Nexus 5 and KitKat on other Nexus devices? I mean, overall, the experience is still the same, right? It's just those launcher things and a little bit of the UI tweaks.
And that's 1% of the changes. The big changes are all under the hood. And
have you guys noticed any difference in colors on the Nexus 4?
Not that we saw before. We got a sneak peek at an early build for the Nexus 4 is what we're talking about. And the final version has a few differences from what we saw. But do you think it's as good as it was before?
I think what we saw previously is probably a little bit better. It's weird. It's to do with display tuning, and the Nexus 4 never had particularly good display tuning. That's why it looked a little bit washed out compared to other LCDs. I think auto brightness has probably been fixed up a little bit though. That the 4 seems to scale a little bit better than it did before.
Maybe
I could never get it to go high enough indoors before.
I haven't messed with it a whole lot, but I did notice that it's not. It's washed out again. Not like
it is a little
was
bit,
there.
Yeah, I think it's probably halfway between where it was and what we saw.
Russ says, thanks to Jerry and his honest opinion, I chose the Moto X over the Nexus 5, and I'm really happy with my choice. Yeah, we need to write a head-to-head, and I wanted to wait till we got the review up, and we finally got that up today. And Alex did an incredible job.
Yep,
with
massive.
The review. Yeah, I tell you, I've been flipping back and forth a little bit, but I've mostly been using the Nexus 5. Nexus or the Moto X, I would absolutely still recommend it. I think the big difference at that point is the price, right?
Yep.
What it's going to cost you.
And a sneak inside baseball this weekend. Look for something on the blog about it.
Woohoo!
Because I've got it in the works, 80%.
Speaking of things you're going to see this weekend, Ryan asks, is Android Central going to do a Pebble review? So, yeah, we were a little late in getting a Pebble, and even later in writing something up. So we did something a little different, and not just like a normal review, but kind of just our take on it. And yeah, look for that Saturday actually. So, and it'll look a little different. Did it kind of talk mobile style? See what you think. I think it looks really nice.
Oh yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Matthew says, do you think we're seeing a slow unraveling of the relationship between Samsung and Google? Google seems to be spooling up their Motorola machine. I see a divergence in their business models. You know, everybody talks about the relationships between these companies.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea what the relationships between these companies are. But how did Alex just get on the Hangout twice?
There are dueling Alexes.
Whoa!
Magic. Say something, Alex. See if you show up twice.
Which one of you do I kick out? Can I kick you out? Hide from broadcast. Raise your hand. The real Alex, raise your hand.
Hi, Phil.
I'm hiding the
Yeah,
other.
Oh, the other one's frozen.
Yes, it's frozen.
I think different business models are good. I think ultimately, I mean, look, Samsung got to where it is by playing the game right and doing really well and making devices people want to buy.
Yep.
And if that makes everybody else step up, then good. So be it.
And it did.
Yeah.
There's a difference between, there's a difference between two different manufacturers like going at each other, like, attacking each other, and each doing their own thing to try to further their own business. And that's what you want. You want them independently, feeding off each other, for lack of a better word, I guess, to improve their own products. And that doesn't mean that they're attacking each other just because they're both trying to do better things.
Yeah.
And we hear the word business relationship a lot. We have to remember we have no idea. The business relationship could be Samsung thinks that Google is only good as a means to make lots of money. They may not like each other at all. We have no idea.
I mean, you see all these stories that Samsung is running away with Android, or just something like that, or Google has to get control back. Well, Google has control. It's their operating system still. I mean, we've said this for a long time.
There's still a ton of benefit for Samsung.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Google effectively does all the hard work for them in terms of the low end stuff.
$79 billion worth, wasn't it? Their last financial result, what they're holding in the bank.
Could argue with that. Yeah.
It's the way it's supposed to work. And you know what? So what if Samsung did better than Google thought they might? I mean, again, that's a good thing. That makes Google say, stop and say, all right, we need to take a look at this. We want this to go a certain direction. How do we bring it back to that? And that's fine too. I have no problem with that. And it lets them say, all right, let's go out and buy Motorola so we can do something a little different. And I think it's been a good thing. I think we've seen more growth in the Android space itself and more change in the past year than in the past 6 months. I still want to see HTC do better. I think I still want to see LG do better. LG still. I was using the G-Pad 8.3 last night, which is still horribly named, and that's a really good tablet with software that still needs work. But damn, that's a really good device. I want to see all these manufacturers do well.
Well, there's Samsung didn't do anything that any manufacturer couldn't have done.
Right.
And they didn't do anything they weren't supposed to do. This is why Google gave them Android to build, to make their own, and to make a crap ton of money with, and it worked.
Theo asks, now that the Samsung Galaxy Gear watch has full Android notification support, does it fare any better in your judgment? Have to try it, and we have to get Jerry a new charger for the watch because I think I lost it in San Francisco. But face value, absolutely, as long as the notifications don't suck. Yeah.
Points out how lame having the charging dock requirement is.
Well, then there's that.
But my biggest beef with the Gear was the notifications.
Yeah.
So, I'm very interested.
It's still expensive. That hasn't.
And it's still Samsung only, which is my other big beef with it.
See, I'm an idiot who buys watches knowing that they're overpriced because they're shiny and I like them. And I understand it being Samsung only. To me, that's a good business decision, even though I don't like it.
Remember, I said a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I said I was going to back off that a little bit. Like it's still a limited pool, but it's still a really big pool. So I get that.
We just don't like it.
Right. Hey, can we talk about ISIS for a minute? Speaking of things I don't like. So ISIS officially launched on Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. And Andrew,
The mobile payment processor, ISIS, we should say.
You looked into this for me a little bit, right? Because I was kind of too mad to do it.
I could see why you were mad to do it.
Well,
It's so this is the carrier-backed version of Google Wallet, really, and it's kind of like a very inside baseball kind of thing. So it's not an open standard. It is based on NFC, but it's built on agreements with carriers, payment processors, and merchants. So you kind of need the trifecta there, where the merchant you go to has to have special processing software and a special terminal. So it doesn't, as far as I know, it's not backwards compatible automatically with like the PayPass stuff that's already there. You need to be on T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T. You need to have a specific phone, which, for example, no Note 3,
no Moto X.
No Moto X. We
Nexus.
think Note 3 might be because of some of their other security stuff that they do. Not entirely sure, but so you need a specific device. You need a special SIM card because the SIM card has to have a secure element in it, which is, so, and then you also have to have the ISIS mobile payment app, which is carrier specific. There's not one app, there's one for each carrier. And then you have to have a specific credit card, so you have to have a special Amex or
my God.
a special
What you're
Chase
saying
card.
is there's like one person who can use this fully to the
We're getting farther. And so they do
point?
have the option to connect a bank account, but it goes through their processor. So basically, there's fees associated with it. Not to you, but somebody's bearing the fee along the way. I think the retailer probably pays it, just like with Square or any other credit card. But we. Right now it looks like it's two credit card companies, so it's a special Amex and a special Chase card, and that's it for credit cards. Capital One dropped it. You don't have any of the other, there's no Bank of America or any other credit unions or anything like that, because it's kind of an inside baseball kind of group. It's just not going to, the way that Google Wallet has gone, Google Wallet kind of started more in this arena, but now they're going to no secure element, any bank account, any debit card, any credit card you want, and any terminal that has PayPass, like the standardized NFC payments. And so getting to Alex's question, like 3 people in the US can use it at like 2 stores.
Thanks,
well,
Obama.
no, you can use it in more places than that. But
No,
still.
you really can't.
No?
No. They have like a where can I use it? And so I'm in downtown Seattle, and there was like 5 pins on the map in Seattle.
You should look at that map from Bunker Hill.
And the funny thing is 3 of them are a Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T store. And then one of them is like a Coke machine that uses NFC.
And that's what I was getting at. But I just get the feel that it's this weird corporate thing that we're only going to use it if Coke's on board because they're going to give us money to just something is
right. And the fact that the carriers are in on it, it's really just the carrier's next step, realizing that their revenue per user is going down, and other things like phone calls and text messages, so that they want to get on this carrier billing thing. Like we saw a small carrier billing push in like Google Play and things like that, where you could build your phone account. This is just the next level of that. They want you to get locked in.
I pulled up the where can I use it thing for Pensacola. So there's some Coke store of some sort that I have a feeling is like a corporate office, but whatever. Verizon store, Aeropostal, I don't even know how to say it, wherever the kids shop. Toys R Us, T-Mobile store, Office Depot, Foot Locker. A lot of this is in the mall.
You're just surrounded. You're knee deep in ISIS.
Man, go get that secure SIM card and download that app.
Just go buy everything with your phone.
And so the thing is, so this never caught on with. I mean, we can be honest. It never caught on with Google Wallet, and that already built on. I mean, every store that I walk into has the PayPass terminal for MasterCard made a huge push behind that, and it still never caught on. And maybe it'll catch on more now that you don't need secure elements and things like that. But it's still awkward. And Alex made the point, we were talking about this when it happened, that it's never going to be easier to use than an NFC credit card. And in Europe, they have more credit cards that have NFC in them for the tap to pay thing. But it's just, and it's still US only, whether you go with ISIS or Google Wallet right now. So it's like,
this is step one for Apple to put an app in the App Store and tell people that it's cool. And that's what will happen. Apple will say that it's cool, and then Phil's map will have millions of pins instead of just 9.
Well, but then the problem goes, I mean, the way that we think Apple's going to end up doing is with this whole iBeacons thing and Bluetooth and kind of the more, not Square, but the other one that's just location aware. They're going to do something like that probably, and it's not going to be compatible, just like the way ISIS isn't compatible with anything else, just like Google Wallet is compatible with something that nobody uses. It's, you're still going to carry a wallet with a credit card in it, and, you're just going to have to deal with it.
Speaking of those, did you guys see that Coin credit card thing that came out this week?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's pre-orders for this thing, so it's $50. They're supposed to ship it like next summer.
And then spam the hell out of all your friends. I just want to choke everyone over that.
So the way it works is they give you a little thing to plug into your phone or something, or plug into the credit card stuff, and you swipe your current credit cards, and it stores them on this one sort of digital credit card. And when you go to pay something, you choose which card you want to use, and then hand that to the person. They swipe it, and it all works. I mean, I can think of like 30 ways this won't work or will work badly.
Google Wallet.
Well, no, I mean, least of all is when a store, the store says, "I'm sorry, we don't take that. I need your real credit card." And well, this is all I have on me because it uses everything. And but man, it got popular really quick. And I tell you, the way they did it was genius. $50, you can get up to what is it? $20 in credit, I think, if people use your referral link. I forget how much. No, I think it actually might have been the entire price. I think, and then all you pay is shipping. But it's genius. So they get your money up front. You essentially get a free one. But even if it never gets funded, all they're out is shipping. I mean, it's really smart. If it takes off, we'll see. But I'm not betting on it.
If it takes off, I give it a week before somebody has an exploit to get past the security, and then they have all your cards when they get it.
Right. It's or somebody says, how do they keep me from swiping my friend's card into my own credit card? And
then you have it.
Well, you were only allowed to use your cards. What? How do you know? I don't know.
It's, you know what though? I'm sure they're smart enough to have thought of all this.
Right.
We're dissing it, and we've never touched it or never seen it because we like to hate things. Especially Phil.
I'm not worried about the technology as much as just Google Wallet. I mean, it's just a physical manifestation of what Google is trying to do in software, where they'll let you emulate any card you want. That doesn't mean it's going to take off.
What's absolutely cool, I saw on Amazon a little case for your phone, and they make it for just about every phone. It has a slot to put your damn credit card in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to pay for something, you take your credit card out of the back of it and you hand it to the nice lady, and she pay for it, and it goes right back in, and everyone accepts it. So that's the way I'm going.
Yeah.
What else?
Let's talk about something happier.
Yeah, CyanogenMod installer is now available in Google Play. I haven't tried it yet, just haven't had time, but everything I've read sounds like it's really good.
Well, you need to have a Windows PC.
Well,
you still got to do a bunch of stuff after you install the app.
So I read it was pretty good.
All the app. So the app is good because for awareness reasons it'll get you to think about it. But all the app does is make you turn on USB debugging and then says go to git.cm to download everything that does all the cool stuff.
But it does it really well.
Doesn't it help you with drivers and stuff?
That's all the stuff on the desktop side does that. So this just gets your phone ready, which is still important, right? If fewer people are going to just discover get.cm than can see the app in the Play Store. But it's and they're both important components. And as we kind of talked about they couldn't just put an app in the Play Store that does all this. That would
No.
break many
Well,
rules.
they could, but it wouldn't be around for very long.
Yeah, they know better than that. So it's kind of a necessary evil, but it's still like, darn.
This is a good starting point too. I can tell somebody, yeah, install this app, run it, and it'll walk you through.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, do you necessarily want someone who needs walking through installing CM on their phone when
No,
it
and
is
that's
such a one-way process?
that's the wall they're running into.
An hour after somebody does it, the question is going to come up: how do I go back? I don't like this.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
the
a
question
problem.
is, you in CM land now.
I was thinking about that this week with the Nexus stuff, and I take for granted that not everybody who owns one of these phones now understands, just the basics of ADB. And I know we do stories every now and then, but I can't recommend enough. Like, learn, read everything you can. I don't care if it's a DarkSide or somebody else's or XDA or wherever. Educate yourself and learn how to flash these, learn how to sideload these updates, learn how to take a factory image and use that to update your device without wiping it. And even that's just a matter of opening up one file and erasing 3 characters and saving it again. And why things work the way they do on Nexus. It just makes life so much easier and for me more enjoyable for this stuff.
You know what I'm going to do?
What's that?
I'm going to get with our forum advisors because
Mhm.
those guys know everything about this kind of stuff. We're going to do a Hangout on Air walk through how to get ADB set up on your Windows computer
Cool.
with Q&A and everything. I know they'll be just champing at the bit to do something like that. Look for that, guy. In the near future, look for that.
And the issue, the problem is that the drivers can honestly
Windows
be the
drivers
biggest issue.
Yeah.
At that, getting ADB, all the tools are there. It's just,
Yeah.
when you follow a guide for using ADB perfectly, you can follow it perfectly and it can still not work because your phone isn't set up right or your cables or your drivers or something.
Windows drivers are you don't know how many late nights Jerry and I stayed up trying to get just phones to recognize. And, oh my
Back
God,
in the
like when I
early
switched to
days-
Mac, it made it so much easier.
In the early days of Samsung and Motorola's drivers, they were so bad they just ruined everything.
Yeah. Oy. A couple other things, and we got a couple of emails I want to do, and then we're out of here. Totally forgot to mention earlier, by the way, the Moto X, you can get custom ones on all the carriers now in the U.S. How do we not mention that?
And it's only $50 on
why?
Verizon right now.
Yeah, I
Because
forgot.
it's 2 freaking months too late, Motorola.
Yeah,
That's
Yep.
why it's not the biggest thing everybody's talking about right now.
and we're still waiting on the wood.
Yeah, I
We
was
know
gonna
they're
ask-
ready. They've got all the stuff waiting in the source code for the website.
Is it going to even be still relevant by the time they do
I don't
that? It
know.
seems like they might have missed the boat on that.
Especially when you're going to do something that radical, you have to do that up front because if you do the wood ones now and there are like serious radio issues, and I know they test this stuff, but things happen that you don't realize until it's out. It
Or
could
it
get
just-
ugly.
Or it just shrinks or expands or falls off or rots or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I don't know.
Termites.
Yeah.
Google Glass has sign-ups for anyone who's interested. Whether that gets you Glass, within the next 6 months, I don't know.
It gets Google a big list of emails.
Yeah, it does. Andrew and I are going to start writing about Glass finally now that we have it, and we're getting a little more comfortable with it. I'm still finding use cases for it, and whether I would actually wear it around all day remains to be seen. But I had some fun at my daughter's soccer practice the other night.
Yes. It let us know that your daughter plays soccer better than you.
You're
Dude,
a
that
terrible,
was
you're
a-
a terrible goalie.
Well, I'm a horrible goalie, but especially when I'm wearing $1,500 glasses, a jacket.
But that was an awesome kick. She totally fucking.
Oh yeah, no,
You-
I've never seen her catch a ball that well, so I was
Yeah, that was
surprised
nice.
more than anything. No, so we're having more fun with that, so we'll be writing more on that. So you want to do a couple emails and we'll get out of here?
Let's do some emails.
I'll start. Harry writes, "Hey guys, Apple, when it has an update, it releases it into the wild for everything all at once. Why does Google not do the same? It irritates me to no end to have to wait for my Nexus 10 to be updated. Yes, I realize I could do the update myself, but I lack the confidence to do it. Furthermore, a tech rep at Google Support told me that because I purchased my Nexus in a Walmart, I was at the bottom of the list to be updated. The whole
Ugh.
process is ridiculous. Everything should be updated all at once."
Yeah.
In a perfect world, it would be.
And a tech rep at Google that told you that is just full of crap.
Needs to be fired.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, look, they do it off the IMEI, right?
Right.
Which, conceivably, but
I agree that I mean, it's bad for users and it's an image problem for Android, right? That you buy a Nexus device and one of the big, even if it's not sort of explicitly advertised, it's understood that if you buy a Nexus, you get fast updates.
Yeah.
And you got a Nexus 10, you're waiting 2 weeks after the Nexus 5's arrived, and you're not getting it all at once with everyone else. And there are wait times, and you can understand why Google does it from a rollout perspective, because they don't want to, if something's broken in it, they don't want everyone to get that broken update all at once. But on the other hand, if it's a broken update, why are you releasing it?
Right.
Everything should work. It should be on every device. They should have the bandwidth and the technical skill to do what Apple does, at least with Nexus devices.
And Brian Klug talked about this, I think, on the latest Vector with Renee, and made the exact same point of, if you're worried that it's broken, then you shouldn't be rolling it out and roll out anyways, because if you're worried any small percentage of time that it's going to brick something, you're just guaranteeing that you're going to brick 5% of people's devices, which is still bad.
But that's not a fair comparison. There's a big difference between installing it over a wire at your development computer than installing it over the air.
But they can still. I just think that if they're not confident enough in their abilities to push out the OTA to 5%, then
that's always seemed like a bit of a cop-out to me.
Until a packet's bad and the MD5 doesn't check and it installs and your $499 tablet is now a coaster. I see their caution, but that doesn't explain why after the first few percentage get it and it's successful, they don't just open the gate.
Even then, it shouldn't take 3 weeks for people to still be hanging on.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with app updates as well. The same principle, the same. I mean, you can kind of understand it if there are bugs in apps. It's easier for buggy app updates to get through than it is for buggy firmware to get through. But it's still the same idea of you read about an update and you can't get it.
You know what I think of?
Jerry had a good word for that this week.
Yeah,
if you want to tell people about that.
Troll out. That fits it perfectly. But I get it, because there's 1.3 billion users that are going to be trying to get that search update.
Right. Google just have enough bandwidth to get 1.3 billion users the same update at the same time.
Maybe they don't.
Okay, but that's completely different than 400,000 Nexus devices
getting
an update
two
at once.
Different.
I understand that they roll out the the Wi-Fi Nexus 7 gets it, and then the Nexus 4 and the mobile Nexus 7s get it. Like that makes sense, but flip the switch for 1%, and in 2 days, if it doesn't, the world doesn't catch on fire, then just push it to the other 99%. There's just no reason for this staged rollout crap.
Agreed. I think they need to have a test group for at least 24 hours. But after that, I have to agree with you guys that in 24 hours, if you release it to 10,000 users, you're going to know whether it's going to break something or not.
Well, and then you should
know if it's going to break something if you have Google as dogfooding it, which they do.
Yeah. And
the test group is probably bigger than 10,000.
Well, but then we've got these Motorola soak tests that apparently are going out to everybody all at once now. So
they go out and then the official update goes out 12 hours later.
I mean, I know how they did it because I was in the last one for the Moto X, but at the same time, we got all these emails the next day. Hey, I wasn't in on the soak test, but I got it too. The next morning. So
and when the carriers, they take forever to push out the updates, but we see, the forums light up with dozens and dozens of people that get it all within an hour frame, and that's, granted, that's an extremely small subset, but you can extrapolate that pretty well to everybody getting it pretty much at the same time.
I think the carriers do it right, everybody except AT&T. Because if you read blogs and you go and manually check for it, you can get it. Google blocks that where it's only available for you at a certain time based on your device ID.
And it's not based on the state you live in, by the way.
No.
I just keep putting that out there.
All right, somebody get the next one.
Sean writes, I know you hate Verizon. I don't think you hate Verizon. But I'm thinking of getting a Moto X Developer Edition. I like the idea of an unlocked bootloader and custom ROMs. My question has to do with SafeStrap. I'm new to that and never had to use it on my Galaxy S3. Is SafeStrap a a good option for an unlocked bootloader. Does it make the need for an unlocked bootloader a thing of the past? I'd rather not pay extra for a developer edition model with an unlocked bootloader if I can get away with that from a regular Moto X with the help of the developer community.
By the way, when you say we hate Verizon, go back to the last week or two when we talked about how if you want to use like a Nexus device, Verizon's just not the carrier to try to do it on. That's, I don't inherently hate Verizon. I don't think there are any.
I'm thinking, speaking of hating carriers, just as a tangent for the moment, have we talked enough about Sprint's new swirly spinning icon thing?
Let's answer his question first.
Yeah, let's answer his question, and we'll talk about that.
Jerry, I know how you feel about this. Come on.
Buy the damn developer edition. That's what they make it for.
Yep.
Let Motorola and Verizon work together to make a Moto X that's locked up tight and safe as hell for the people who want a phone that's locked up tight and safe as hell, and be glad that they offer you an unlocked one that you can do whatever the hell you want with.
And
Stop pinching the penny, spend the extra $100 and do it.
It's $550 now instead of $650. So
I'm sorry, that buying the unlocked developer version helps everybody involved. It helps Verizon, it helps you, it helps Motorola, it helps the people who want the locked up phones to feel safe.
And it's funny how that it always works with the developer editions. People say, "Oh, why don't they release the developer edition?" And then the developer edition S4 comes out, and like 3 people buy it.
Exactly.
So
I mean, I am glad to see these companies do it finally. If you release a developer edition phone, by all means, encrypt every damn thing on the other models if you want. Let the users that need to be safe be safe.
And I think $500 is actually a pretty decent price. I mean, would I like it to be lower? Sure.
Yeah.
But $500 is not a horrible price for that sort of thing.
You cannot expect Verizon to foot the bill and subsidize a phone that you are instantly going to take out of the box and try to break.
Right.
yeah, you should just be happy that they allow that.
Now, having said all that, if
As
you're on
sad as it is.
Verizon and you're determined that you're not going to go, and this is what it sounds like, Sean. I don't know you. I'm not trying to judge you, but it sounds like you're going to end up getting the regular one and depend on the custom ROM community to help you bust it open. If you're going to do that, buy the damn Droid Max. I'm sorry, that Verizon has the best phone, not counting the lockdown network and locked bootloader crap, but the Droid Max is everything the Moto X is with a freaking 3-day battery in it. I wish it was on T-Mobile.
It's a good phone.
All right, somebody do the last one, or the next to last one.
Okay, I'll take it. James. James writes, I have a question about using trusted Bluetooth devices and NFC unlock via the Moto Skip accessory on the Moto X when you have a Google Apps account and have to use Google Device Policy. My college, for reasons I do not understand, requires a PIN lock or password lock for students that have their email on their phone. There's lots of reasons for that. Will I still be able to use trusted Bluetooth devices and or NFC unlock on the Moto X, or will that break my Google Apps email? I don't think it'll break your email, but it probably won't work. An exchange policy
It does not work for Exchange.
An exchange policy or Google Apps account policy overwrites everything, as it should.
It doesn't. At least in one instance, it does not work with an Exchange policy. So I don't know how close they are with Google Apps policies. That's just not my forte.
I have a
But
feeling
it is
that
possible it won't work.
I have a feeling that Google Apps might. I mean, I don't know anything about Google Apps at this level, but I would think that they might have a certain level where that's okay with the policy setter. But I would assume that if they're doing a blanket policy to everybody, that they're just going to say PIN or passcode for everybody. For a school email, it's kind of annoying, but.
Now, Phil, don't you be getting in our email and saying, let's mess with Jerry.
You know what I was
Make
thinking
it so his
about?
Pebble and Skip won't work.
You know what I was thinking about was the back in the day when I was on Exchange at the newspaper with the Q10. Like the first thing I would do when I'd hook back into it was just go and edit the registry. And get rid of all that, security crap.
I'm sure that made your IT guys extremely happy.
I knew them pretty well, so we had our nods and our winks and went about our business. All right, somebody want to get the last one?
I want the last one.
Do it.
Steve writes, hey guys, Hey guys, my upgrade is in January and I'm going from the Note 2 to the Note 3. Is the gear worth getting or should I wait? Thanks. I love what you guys do. Keep it up. Let me look at the gear for another week after I get this charger before I answer that question. I'm definitely going to be on the blog what I think with this new software update, because I have said since day one that before you buy the gear, either wait for the big software update that's going to fix notifications or wait for the fire sale to get it for $100. Now the software update is here, and I am itching to look at it.
Amen.
Yep.
And with
In
that,
other parts of the world, you've already started to see the price come down. So
Yep.
by then, you maybe get it for 200 or so. It's already around for 220, 230 in the UK.
Yes, and no matter where your upgrade is, if you decide to get it in January, buy the gear from T-Mobile. You can get it a $100 off coupon. It's very easy to find if you Google it on the internet.
true. And with that, I think we're done. Are we done? Anybody else have anything?
I think we're done.
Go download our app if you haven't yet. We're working on it slowly. We got good
was-
things in the works. I know
It was in the
everybody's
trending
asking.
app list today.
Apparently.
Because we're trendy.
Maybe in the UK. I couldn't see it here.
Oh yeah, I guess it was Richard. You don't know what they're trending over there, you know.
Yeah, tell me about it. I know everybody's been asking about search in the app. Absolutely something we want to work on. We got to do some back-end stuff before we get that going in the app. Actually, believe it or not, Android Central is the last one to upgrade on our CMS. So we got to get that done first, and trust me, it's search in the app is something we want. Upgrading our CMS version is something we want. So thank you for your patience on that. So good things coming. I've got the HTC One Max here on Sprint. Yeah, not a lot to say. It's got some crazy spinny icon for LTE. It's horrible. The phone itself is the same. There's a whole. And I tell you what's really weird about this: a whole lot of Sprint software, and they used to be hiding it. They're not really hiding it on this one.
You've got two of those now, right?
Yeah, I have two HTC One Maxes here.
If
This
you
is like
duct-
3 square feet of screen.
Yeah, if you duct tape them to your hands and you get in the water, you can swim like Aquaman.
If you want to email us like Stephen, James, and Sean and Harry did, do so at podcast@androidcentral.com, or you can ask live Q&A questions. Sorry we didn't do more of those tonight. A whole bunch of good stuff. I wish we could get to them all. If you want to get us all on Google+, just search for our names. That's the easiest thing. Actually, do we all have the vanity URLs now? It's just plus whatever your
Yes, we
name is.
do.
Yes.
We are brought to you, as we are every week, by shopandroid.com, or you can call them if you want, 888-468-6158, or just go to shopandroid.com.
No, you should call them. They probably feel lonely.
No, I've never done that. I've never experienced that. I should do it sometime. We will most likely be back next week, live, same time, probably Friday afternoon. So thank you, everybody, for joining in live today. And if you're listening at home later, thank you again so much. It's been kind of an incredible month, and like I said at the outset, I'm feeling pretty good this week because we did a lot of good stuff, and we got a lot of good stuff coming up still. So thank you, Jerry, Alex, Andrew. Thank you guys, too.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Phil.
Go read Alex's Nexus 5 review if you haven't. Did a hell of a job on it. So he did.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, that's it. We're out of here. See you next week.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Adios.